Hello everyone, it's time to do another deck profile, this time on the Orfist Regis deck, or the World deck, whatever you like to call it. Now, this deck didn't exactly get much cards when it comes to set 6, and to be fair, it is really just one card, but that one card actually made a very big difference for the deck. And it also kind of changed the lineup of some of the cards for a bit, and also swap out some cards, so I'm just going to do a deck profile on it anyway. Yes, Orfist Regis was introduced in Festival Collection, and I'm glad there was a new Orfist. It did make things a little more interesting, even though it was still a little lackluster. Because one of the problems with this deck still has is the fact that you have lack of hand, but you're trading that for power. But with one new specific card in set 6 for Overdress, well, that kind of changed it up a bit. You could make a 5th attack in your very first grade 3 turn for one. The second thing is that it actually kind of caused a change of the lineup of your cards. And that's why I'm just doing a deck profile on it, just to show some of the changes, and because that one actually made a huge difference. But what do I think of the deck? I actually like the design of the deck because it's Link Joker base, and I always like Link Joker aesthetics, so that's why I decided to build Orfist in the first place. And I also like the world concept, and with Orfist Regis, it actually made the world concept more interesting, where it gets stronger over time because more worlds you get, more power you're going to be gaining. Orfist Regis kind of changed that. And now there's actually a good reason to have Orfist Regis as the first grade 3 ride. Because before, using Orfist Regis as your first grade 3 ride was, let's just say, like, still very lackluster, even though it gives you a 4th attack in a way, but you are losing quite a lot of hand advantage doing so. That's the main problem with Orfist Regis at first. But now, with a new specific card in set 6, Orfist Regis has kind of become a little more worth using, even with the lack of hand. Sure, you are trading it for more power and attack, beat down, and all that. Everything focuses around these tokens after all. But still makes it a little more worth it now. But in that, let's just start with the deck profile with, of course, the ride deck. Of course, we have to start with starter, Cardinal thing Fuvi, because archetype reasons, which we go to Cardinal Rotis, which when you ride it, you can search your deck for one world card. So the world card is basically the set order for this deck. Every brand gate has a set order, and it's just every subtype. Now, just do keep in mind that your goal is to have at least 2 set orders. At least. But for Orfist Regis, you do want to build more over time. So you do want that, and of course this will help. There is one ideal searcher as your first set order. And then we go to the grade 2 Cardinal Cubicia, where when you play a set order or world card, you get plus 5k power to one of your units. Ignore those rearguard abilities because it's only for the ride deck purpose. But it does make a difference. It's just not that great for a grade 2 of a ride deck. Now we go to the grade 3 where we go to Orfist Regis. Orfist Regis is basically multi-attack in a nutshell, like many decks nowadays now. So on place, very important, you can choose one world card from your hand or drop zone and put it to the order zone. This actually nullifies the cost of the order card. And this also makes it where you can actually risk discarding those world cards as discard fodders for your ride deck. And of course, that will of course be mainly pluses right there. And nullifying some of the heavy costs of some of your world cards really does help. And as an extra bonus, you get 1 extra world card during the turn. Keep that one in mind. In which we go to the second skill, where when it attacks while you are Abyssal Dark Knight, that's if you have 2 world cards, you can counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand. For every 2 world cards in your order zone, you call 1 token, and this card gets us 5k. So on your very first grade 3 ride, you're very likely going to have 3 world cards, because your world cards are grade 2 or over, so you can only play your first one on your grade 2 turn. Ride this, you get a 3rd one, and at the same turn, you play it normally, that will be 3 world cards. So basically, every 2, you get 1 token, which will be 1 extra attack. And 4, ideally, basically on your second grade 3 turn, 4 world cards, you will get 2 tokens. But with one new specific card, you could actually get the 2 tokens on your very first grade 3 turn, so making this a little more worth it. Because before, this was very lackluster, giving you the 4th attack, and still very lackluster of a hand. Even now, it's still lackluster of a hand, but the trade-off is still more worth it now, because at least you still replenish some of your pluses and get more attacks. But anyway, it's just another fancy Vanguard unit that could just give you more multi-attack in a way with comboing with other cards. So nothing exactly too special, but it does change up the deck quite a bit to the point where it's not as boring as old Orfist where it just costs 3 tokens. At least that does save your hand and it does make the 2 counterblast worth it. But still, this new one just adds a lot of pressure. So yeah, this Orfist is preferred. And also you do want to speed up your world count as fast as you can, because that's important. Continuing off to the main deck, Persona Ride, you have to run the remaining 3 Orfist Regis, and also you do want to re-ride because you want to re-trigger the first skill to build up those world cards. And now to the world cards themselves. So first, Overcoming an Eternity, the 4 copies of Halloween Moonlight, the 2 copies of Eclipse Shadow. My bad, Eclipse Moonlight. So all of them have this same skill where if you have 1 world card, it's Dark Knight. If you have 2 world cards in your order zone, it's Abyssal Dark Knight. All of them have the same skill, so let's just ignore that part. Costs are different, but Orfist Regis can actually nullify the cost with its own skill. So Overcoming Eternity requires 2 Soul Blasts, Halloween Moonlight Night requires 1 Soul Blast, and Eclipse Moonlight requires 1 Counterblast. And then other than that, each one of them will have their own unique skill. Overcoming Eternity, for all the tokens that get called, gets plus 5k. This is very important, which is why you run 4. It's because multi-attack, mid-battle calling. Your tokens will get called mid-battle, and they get plus extra 5k, which make them 20k beater. And with a new specific card that will call more tokens in mid-battle, that will be even more pressure right there. Halloween Moonlight is just for draw power, because you do lack hand, which is why I run 4. This is so you could just get some more hand advantage. And then there's Eclipse Moonlight, where it just calls a token on place. Very good pressure card as your main first order card that you're going to play. This is always my search target and my first world card I like to play. Other than your grade 2 turn pressure with this card, it doesn't exactly matter turns after. Especially I rather use Orfist Regis in many ways, but the second copy does help come up sometimes, so I just run 2. But other than that, there are other world cards you can play. There is the one that can retire one of your opponent's rear guards if you want to tech that in, just to give some removal option. But these 3 are the main ones because draw power is very necessary in this deck. You do lack hand advantage because you are sacrificing that for power. And then this is just extra more beatdown. And now to the new card that actually made a difference. Cardinal Dragon Norvidia. So Norvidia, or Norvidia, whatever, gets plus 2k power for every world card in your world order zone. By the time you hit grade 3, you should be at 3, so this will be a 19k beater on its own, which is not bad. But the second skill is where it matters, because when this card is retired by any means, including being placed on top of it, you can call another token. So what you can do is, when Orfist Regis attacks, you can place the Shadow Army token on top of this card, which will call another one, which will give you 1 more additional attack because it's 1 more extra token from this card. And this actually made a very huge difference for the deck. Because like I said before, Orfist Regis as a first grade 3 wasn't exactly worth it even for a 4th attack because you're trading 1 card for 1 more attack and you are losing hand advantage. With this card, it's losing 1 card for 2 attacks, which kind of makes it a little more worth it, and this is already a beater on its own, which is also another reason why this card is a 4-up. And yeah, this card itself just made a very big difference, especially on your second grade 3 turn where you can call 2 tokens, and if you call on top of this, you get 1 extra booster token, which adds a huge pressure boost right there. So Norvidia is just a must-play 4-up as a new addition, and this is basically the only new card for the deck that actually made a huge difference. Next, for a grade 2 that I've been always back and forth with because Orfist was always kind of weird to build for me, is Cardinal Draco Carmen Mead. So the skill is, on Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, you can give this card boost and intercept from the back row. Very nice! A grade 2 10k booster. And that actually makes a pretty decent difference, especially for a deck that actually lacks hand advantage. Especially for the second skill where it makes it better, where if you're Abyssal Dark Knight, shield plus 10k, so 15k interceptor in the back row, which is also a 10k booster. It just really helps out a lot to give you some advantage, and especially for defensive value purposes, since this deck does still lack defensive value, it just helps. Yes, I did get rid of the other 2 Cardinal Dracos that were grade 2 that can do some retiring of your Shadow Armor token to do something, because they are not as relevant as much. This deck focuses on the multi-attack, which is also lack of hand, and you don't really want to be losing too much advantage. So having some defensive options really will help out because you're already lacking those defensive options as it is. So I'm running these. I might even run a 4th copy. Next, this card is very good for the deck. Cardinal Dumbarino. So when this card boosts the Shadow Army token, the boosted unit can get plus 15k, and if you do at the end of the battle, retire all your rear guards in the same column as this unit, so the token in itself, to let you draw a card. So it creates a very big beater for one. But what's important is that it clears up the board and also lets you redraw a card, which will give you some hand advantage back. That is very important for some combo with Orfist Regis. As you know, Orfist Regis mid-battle calls. So you want to clear up the board for basically Orfist Regis. And getting that draw just really helps out. And being a big beater also just very mean. Finally, and this card might not be exactly too necessary as much now since you don't really use as much counterblast other than with Orfist Regis, I do run the Detonate Mutant Bulbamain, the countercharge, and put the Soul, but Soul is the important part, really. The countercharge, not as much since only Orfist Regis and one world card really just use counterblast in this deck now. But other than that, you could actually just remove this and maybe play something else if you want. Up to you. But I still like Bulbamain. Finally, 4 PGs. Unfortunately, I don't have enough copies of the Blitz Order PG, so I do have to end up running the 4th copy of the regular ones, but hey, it's still fine. So that's it for the regular units and the world card. Now it's for the trigger lineup. Over trigger, never change. You do have to go 8 crits, or you could go 7 crits and play 4 draws instead of 3 because the draw power is very important, but at the same time you do want to kill your opponent as fast as possible, especially on how much pressure this deck can actually pull now with the new Norvidia. And finally, the 4 heal triggers with, of course, the heal triggers with the abilities because it just helps depending on situation. So that's it for this deck profile. What do you guys think of it? What other changes would you make? And what other recommendations would you put in? So far, I've been really liking the deck compared to Festival Collection where it was still lackluster, and just with the one Norvidia being the only new card basically for the deck really helped out a lot to the point where it actually changed the lineup quite a bit that I just made a deck profile out of it. And I have to say, it's been very fun. 5 attacks on your very first grade 3 turn. That is very nasty. Sure, it still lacks hand advantage, but in a way it actually makes it kind of worth it because a good offense is a good defense. And that's kind of what this deck is kind of like. I also like the idea where Orfist Regis kind of changed deck up a bit to the point where you're building up the world cards. The more you have, the stronger you get. And I kind of like that because with the original Orfist, there was really no reason to have more than 2 world cards in your order zone. But with Orfist Regis, it actually kind of matters. So I really like that as well. And because of the release of Norvidia, Counterblast has been a lot cheaper for the deck as well, because I did run the Bison for more tokens, but with Norvidia making everything for free, even for the free token call with more attacks and everything, there's a good reason to run this, which is also very good defensive and boost value as well, making this deck even much more nasty when it comes to beatdown. And this is what basically this deck is, a full-on beatdown token deck on the night. And I do like the Link Joker aesthetic, as this is basically just a Link Joker, which is another reason why I built the deck in the first place from the very beginning, although it was very lackluster in the beginning to the point where I actually wanted to get rid of the deck until Orfist Regis was a thing. And now with Norvidia, well, now I don't really have much of a reason to get rid of the deck anymore because now I really love this deck a lot. But other than that, that's it for this. Hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Just give me more recommendations if you have any and just tell me what you think of it. But other than that, see you all next time.